Hey everybody, this is Josh Runquist here for the Heavy Debriefings YouTube channel, here for another rousing edition of Out Today and What I Missed. This time for Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2025. Yes, there's nothing more romantic and loving than checking out some brand new music. And boy, do I have a lot of it this week. I have another 30 albums for review, 6 of them that are out today, well, 6 that are out this week. A couple came out on Tuesday, but we're gonna count it anyways. And the rest that are stuff that I've missed along the way. Everything from some of the most catchy music that I've heard all year to some of the most... Up first, we have a debut album from an Italian symphonic melodeath band known as Ashen Fields, with So Haggard and So Woe Begone. This technically came out on Tuesday, but it is this week, so it's staying in the Out Today section. Oh well. This is a sensational album that covers the heavenly highs of symphonic and the hell that melodeath can bring as well. With fantastic production, the songwriting is out of this world. Everything about this is just this winning combination that I love so very much. It feels like that great combination of peanut butter and chocolate combined together to form that treat that I probably can't say in the review for legality reasons, but I can't recommend it more. If you're looking for melodic death metal with just that right amount of symphonic elements, seriously, especially for a debut album, you're not going to find much better than this. Next up, we have the 9th album from Bleeding Through with 9. I am astounded that it's already been 9 albums since I first checked them out back in 2003 when they released This Is Love, This Is Dangerous. That was my starting off point. Obviously, they had some music out before then, but enough of me feeling older and older 22 years later. This is about 2025 and seeing where Bleeding Through is at now, and it is some of the best stuff that they've made, bar none. I love how heavy they can get. They have some of the most brutal riffs and breakdowns they've ever done on this album, and you combine that with that classic metalcore sound, that black metal element that they really started to incorporate later on in their career, and just everything is done perfectly. The production value is off the charts where you can hear everything and Next up, we have Crazy Licks with Thrill of the Bite, and it's so great to see the band is back with their 8th album and continuing to do their formula of 80s metal, glam rock, and heavy metal combined with just that really fun style that they've always done. It's always a sight to behold. The riffs are infinitely catchy, the vocal melody is always soar, and the overall songs will be stuck in your heads for days. The perfect modern throwback if you're looking for that 80s hard rock, AOR, metal, all rolled into one like I mentioned before. They have yet to let up the momentum, and Thrill of the Bite really lives up to their name. It's quite the thrill when you bite into the album. Yeah, sorry for the pun. But it's up next, we have Dynasty with Game of Faces. Another band releasing their 9th album today is Sweden's Dynasty. The band continues their upward trajectory of evolving their sound, but still sounding very, very consistent to what they've been known as. Starting as more of an AOR band and then eventually embracing the more metal side, especially the modern metal side as of late, the band has never let go of that sound, yet they still find a way to make every album sound different than the next. In that time, the band never lost their sense of pop sensibilities, and they always find a way to make it more fun and captivating every time you listen to a new album and every time they release a new album. Game of Faces, I will say, is probably their most accessible album, especially for the modern crowd, and especially for those that are Amaranth fans that are just discovering Dynasty. Up next is the debut album from Love Is Noise with To Live in a Different Way. This is also a Century Media debut for this UK outfit, and it's not what you would expect from this label, especially with bands that I've discovered from it like Dark Funeral, Aborted, and Imperial Triumphant. But this is a label that has always found a way to be able to expand their sound on the heaviest ends of the spectrums, and it does get kinda heavy. I mean, not necessarily for someone who checks out my channel or checks out my reviews, but it does get heavy in the way of something in the post-hardcore, alternative metal kind of style, something like Deftones, but it also hits some more dreamy, poppy feelings, that kind of shoegazy feel, but also mixed kind of with Oasis. So yeah, that's the ticket. Deftones meets Oasis with some shoegaze, 90s alternative rock and metal mixed in with just enough modern sensibilities. Yeah, that's it. You have a combination that is sure to launch them into the stratosphere of popularity if it strikes in the right way. I don't know if this is on modern rock radio yet, but I would be shocked if it's not because it feels like it's meant for it. It's a formula that would win over so many people, and when you add authentic songwriting and production that's made for the 2020s, it's just a golden ticket. If you like things more on the lighter, mainstream side of what could be heavy music, I think now we got Hangman's Chair with Sad Diction. I discovered Hangman's Chair on their magnum opus, their previous album back in 2022, A Loner. It was the perfect album that came out at the perfect time during the midst of the pandemic. It is a dark mix of gothic and doom, and it crushes everything in its path. And I wasn't alone in thinking so, as it launched them onto so many great tours and festivals across Europe and the UK. So how do you possibly match up to an album like that? Well, you do it by what worked on that album, but you still keep evolving the sound. Sad Addiction is more of a dynamic album, fueled by such grand and sad lyrics as you would expect from before. I mean, just look at the name, Sad Addiction, but with more tempo changes and the feeling of exploring a new direction and sound on a grander scale. If you're expecting a Loner Part 2, this isn't it, but if you did enjoy Loner Part 2, I think you'll find so much to really appreciate about this one. I think it's more than a worthy successor, and something hits home with something like myself, and others dealing with mental health struggles will also find something with this as well. This is a real album filled with some of the saddest authenticity, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And finally, we end our Out Today's section with another album that technically came out on Tuesday, but I'm still counting it here. It is Prehistoria with Cryptic Halo. There were a couple really great power thrash albums that came out in 2024, but it's a genre that I truly miss more bands doing, and I really hope that this catches on, because if bands like Prehistoria are doing it like this, it needs to happen more. This is a debut album that brings out the best of the genre, feeling like a grand mix of predecessors like Blind Guardian, Nevermore, and Iced Earth. And now for everything that I missed, starting with the debut album from Ami Okama with I Will Be the Clouds in the Morning and the Rain in the Evening. This is one of the strangest yet intriguing albums that I've come across in quite a while, and I've come across some bonkers albums already this year. Debut album from Aki Mikula feels like a whimsical and dark look into the modern outside world, dealing with who you truly are, and yeah, let's face it, the pros and cons of being a trans individual. I can hear so many different styles going on here, from doom to mathcore to dream pop to shoegaze. It feels like an unholy combination of Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum, Made Out of Babies, Dillinger Escape Plan, and Boris. This album is not for the faint of heart, and for those who want their music so far left of center you can't even see the center anymore. Every track feels like it has a different feeling behind it. Sometimes it gets absolutely crushing, sometimes it gets a little more electronic. It just goes in so many different directions, but it all fits together if you like this stuff. If you really want to prove that you have an eclectic taste in music, this is one that you definitely should give a proper shot. We have a sophomore album coming from Germany for the Black and Doom band Atramentum with The War Within, and this hits both sides of the Black and Doom territory so perfectly. It is so layered in doom, but it keeps the black inside in just the right ways to make this album engaging and thought-provoking. Match that up with some of the most heart-wrenching lyrics and just raw enough production that you have an album that is meant for the tortured souls that so many of us are nowadays. It never gets too slow. It's not that funeral doom style, but it is slow, but it never hits the hyperblast of black metal either. It is just right in between, and what I feel is a pure sweet spot for someone like myself. If you want an emotional roller coaster of an album in this style, you need to check this one out and see if it works for you. It's a sad trip, but it's a good one. Up now, we got another Italian debut album here with the band Black Symmetry and Psycho Hell. This is more of a progressive melodeath band, which I haven't seen a lot of bands do, but I'm so glad to see that it's coming up in the genre. This feels like a sick, twisted, horror-esque feel behind it all, in this very catchy yet very progressive melodeath. It's a strange concoction of kind of the heaviest ends of a band like Slipknot, add in some melodic death metal sensibility to all of it, and do I hear some Devin Townsend style riffing and clean vocals thrown in? Yeah, that kind of sealed the deal for me. I dig. Up next is the band Bones with Self-Portrait. Now, I understand that this is listed as an EP. On Metallica, it's listed as an EP. If you look it up online, it's listed as an EP, but it's 28 minutes long. That's longer than Raining Blood, so I think it counts as an album. If you disagree, fine, but I think it's a debut LP. It's 6 full songs, nearly a half hour, but all of that said, forget all of that. This is some fantastic Italian post-black Post-Black from another debut release. It is on the raw side of Post-Black, but it has one key element that really brings out the pure emotions here, and that is the violin on display. It makes the band stand out amongst the rest in this genre. If there was ever a genre in heavy music that needed a full-time violinist, it is Post-Black. It adds so much emotion and the musicality to everything that's going on already. The violin just adds so much more emotion to it, and I love it for it. Overall, this is a very solid release, very raw in the production, but I think it works so well. It's so dark and captivating. Whether it's an EP, whether it's an LP, I'm counting it as an LP. You don't have to. Regardless, I think you should check this one out. Up now we got Clap Sodra with Of Terror and Soul, and this is becoming one of my favorite albums of 2025 so far. It is a sophomore album from an Israeli outfit, and it's just so powerful. It's one of the most powerful things that I've heard all year, and I've already heard 110 albums so far this year. The band focuses on the horrors of war, persecution, and the pain of life, while still having this glimmer of hope to it all. It's a tear-jerking album that hits in all the right moments in bands like November's Doom and My Dying Bride, and they also had their own unique influences to it as well. It's not a funeral doom and gloom album. There is more to it. It even gets a little thrashy at moments as well. There's a great sense of dynamics and tempo changes that happen throughout, with a production value that is quite pristine for the genre, and musicianship that is purely top-notch. The dual vocals between the male screams and the female cleans are so emotional, and it's gotten me very, very close to tearing up myself. This is going to be one of my favorite albums of the year come the end of the year, and you just need to check it out now to understand why. Do not skip out on this one if you were into death doom. Trust me. Up next, we got Clear Sky Nail Bomb with Problem Solved. I really wanted to get this one on sooner, but I'm glad I'm catching it now. This is the fourth album since 2018 for this thrash metal band from Germany, and it's a stellar display of how to make thrash metal your own. In a style, especially that is so often that feels like it's stuck in its own ways, this band finds a way to make it their own, and it does a magnificent job of that. In what feels like a perfect display of what the world currently we live in, Problem Solved is both a harsh reality check and just enough of a tongue-in-cheek feeling that makes this both a serious album and one that can make you smile in a very cynical way. A vocal delivery that gives off kind of a Lamb of God meets Meshuggah vibe. It really makes this stand out amongst the other thrash bands as of late. It's just everything that makes thrash metal great, but just more aggressive and a little more thought-provoking. If you want some originality in your thrash, all while making you tug at your collar at the world we've turned into, well, this country anyways, Clear Sky Nail Bomb, nailed it with Problem Solved. Sorry for the pun. Next up is the band Consumption with Catharsis, and this is pure, unadulterated carcass worship. Not necessarily the gore grind era, and definitely not the death and roll era. It's that sweet spot where it was death metal, and pretty much right in the Heartwork era. It's the almost melodeath era of the band, and I love what they're doing here. On their third album, the band continues their onslaught of enjoying what Carcass did, but never sounding like a pure ripoff. It's 12 songs, it's almost 49 and a half minutes, and it's that sheer late 80s, 90s death metal sound that Carcass really made their own. And it's sure to make fans of both old and new metal to really find something they'll appreciate about this one. I'd love to see these guys do a tour with Gruesome. I think it would be a perfect tribute tour to that classic era of both Carcass and death. If that sounds like it might tickle your fancy, I think you should give this one a proper listen. Up now we have Empty Throne with Unholy. This is a band from all over the USA. It's Arizona, California, and North Dakota, all ending with A's, creating a pummeling blast of blackened melodeath that destroys the senses. This is a debut album that is almost 41 minutes in length, and it flies by, and it feels like it's only done in half that time, which is quite impressive considering it's only 6 songs. Above all else, this is a death metal album, but there's the right moments of blackened feel behind it, and the sense of melody that comes in at just the right moments. It's a raw album giving off that mid-90s production style, but it feels so dark and enchanting. It's a crushing album from start to finish, and it only breaks when the songs are done, and there's those couple seconds of dead spots in between tracks on every album. If you want some crushing metal of this variety, Empty Throne is exactly what you need. I deeply apologize for butchering the album title here, but I have to talk about the 10th album from Arab Altar called Okay, let me see if I can get this. Helsingmörker. The band is back after 3 years since their last album, which was a fantastic album in and of itself, but this is a stunning display of what the band truly is. It feels like the pinnacle of what the band has always been about, even going back to their original sound at times by getting a little bit doomy. But this is that epic Viking metal, black metal, the metal that they've been creating over 10 albums now, while still having that pure love and admiration for Bathory. I mean, just listen to them, you'll fully understand. There is an argument that this could be looked upon as one of their best albums of their discography, just given a little bit of time. And with how many spins I've given this one, there's a strong argument to be made for it. It's heavy in just the right spots, the vocals soar to Valhalla and go all the way down the Helheim. The music is raw, but it's done with such clear production, and the overall feel of it is just how I love my Viking metal. Seriously, while there are other bands in the genre, and you know who they are, Arab Altar has always been one of, if not the best in the genre. Check this one out, and you'll understand why. Up next is the band Face Rip with March of the DB Demons, and I'm going to keep this one short and sweet. This feels like a great mix of Municipal Waste, Gamma Bomb, and SOD. You mix that in with some crossover thrash and speed metal, and you just have this really fun, almost 36-minute long album, 12 tracks, just enough of that tongue-in-cheek feel that I love in this genre. It hits so many great moments on here. If you just love that 80s, and especially that mid-2000s crossover thrash feel, this is an album that you are going to love. Next up, we have another Indiana band here, but this time it's more in the tech death and melodeath realm with the band Fleshbore and Painted Paradise. This thing is an absolute monster that blows their debut album out of the water, which I thought was fantastic back when it came out, but this just takes everything the band has been working at, increases it 100-fold, and it added just the right amount of new ideas and nuances to create something that will pummel you from pillar to post, but it'll still give you the occasional breath or two in between before the pummelings. If you're looking for something that is just proggy enough and it adds elements of bands like Legion, if you're looking for the musicianship of a band like Origin, and let's face it here, a very heavy dose of a band like Archspire, you need to get into Fleshbore. Up now we have the third album, although the first album with vocals from this one-man outfit known as Gnarlmyth with Cataclysmia. It is so hard to kind of categorize this one, I'm gonna try. It feels like modern progressive metal, that also feels like epic metal, that also has this atmospheric feel through all of it. It kind of gets into melodeath as well, like, it feels like a mix of Opeth, Periphery, and Visigoth. I know that sounds weird, but seriously, it might give you an idea of what it sounds like, and I still kind of feel like I might have gotten it wrong, but it's the kind of album that you just need to experience on your own. I can see a number of people who enjoy the heavier and more commercial kind of stuff enjoying this. If you like the old school metal, if you like prog, if you like melodeath, I think you're going to find something to really love about this one. If you go into it with an open mind, I think this will be for you, and I'm so glad that I did that for myself. This is some truly magnificent stuff. Now we got Hallbar with Nemesis, and once you know it, this is another debut album here, but this time coming from Poland. It is a grand mix of black metal and melodeath done to an absolute T, with that musicality of melodeath and just the right moments of black metal, including vocally, and the occasional tremolo picking that goes on as well. I occasionally hear some more modern metal aspects as well too, like I hear some downtuned guitars, which I'm assuming is 7-string, but I'm not a guitarist so I might be wrong on that. But you normally don't hear that done in this melodeath black metal style. It's a fun, catchy, captivating display of all these genres done together. While this won't be for everyone, I think this will hit enough people who are looking for something like this. It's just raw enough, but it's done with a proficiency that really, truly makes it stand out. Give it a shot and see what I mean. Up now we have the third album from a Finnish alternative prog metal band, or as they like to refer to themselves as, hybrid metal, Kioma with A New Beginning. This is my first foray into the band, and I love what I'm hearing. It's everything I love about prog, from the keys to the vocal delivery to the quirky songwriting, done with just enough alternative moments so it doesn't sound like your typical prog band. It's just a random amount of heavier moments that makes everything truly stand out. They do like to refer to themselves as hybrid metal, and they definitely live up to that genre title. This mixes so much, and it feels unorthodox in just the right ways. If you're any kind of a metal fan, prog fan, alternative, or if you're just looking for something that's left of center, I think you owe it to yourself to give this one a proper shot. It is excellent work, and I think you'll agree. It's just a little disheartening as well in the lyrics, but hey, that's the kind of the world that we live in 2025, isn't it? Up next is a band that I deeply apologize for if I don't pronounce right. My Spanish is not up to snuff, but it is the band Legardo de una Tragedia with Lovecraft. They started off as more of a dark tribute to Edgar Allan Poe, but they have branched off and done other things like The Sandman, which is kind of hard for me to talk about now, especially in recent times. But now, this time, they're going to be covering the works of H.P. Lovecraft, which also has its problematic things, but hey, let's try not to focus on that this time. While most metal bands that cover Lovecraft seem to do it in the most brutal death metal styles this side of the great old ones, this band takes the band into a grandiose, symphonic, and gothic power metal direction, as they always have, but this may be a new discovery for you as well. It gives everything a bit more of a theatrical feel behind it, and it gives the stories being told more time to breathe instead of just unleashing the monsters of the universe that he's created. Of course, you'll get those monsters moments, but it feels a little more sophisticated. Sadly, without speaking Spanish, I can't really give any great detail on how the lyrics are done, but you get a good impression of it all by how they're performed and the vocal melodies provided. This is some magnificent work, and I'm definitely going to go back and check out their previous albums as well, but this is a perfect introduction to the band. I know I want more, and you just might want more as well. Now we got Last Force Reign with their self-titled debut. This is another Spanish band, although they sing in English this time. It is everything that I love about post-black and post-rock rolled into one. I know post-black and post-rock, that might sound like kind of the same, because, you know, they're both post-genres, but there is a distinction that they really draw the line on here. There's so much sheer emotion that goes on here with just the right amount of chaos that post-black brings, but just that post-rock instrumentation done in between all of that, it's just the perfect combination that I can't get enough of. It hits me so hard with the vocal delivery, the songwriting, the perfect production style for this style, and just the overall package of it all. It feels like it was meant for me. If you want something a little less aggressive in your post-black, or if you want something more sinister in your post-rock, you need Last Force Reign. And another band that I really hope I can get the name right of, and I apologize if I get it wrong, it is Noctambulist with Noctambulist 2 De Drum. I can't proclaim my love for this album enough if I tried. It is as if someone discovered Alcest and Lantlos at the same time that they discovered Depeche Mode and The Cure. It's gothic post-black, 80s gothic post-black at that, and just the right amount of experimental moments going on as well. I just absolutely love it. The production is so profound, the musicianship is top-notch. The performances on display will definitely leave you wanting more. It's even better if you just check them out for yourself and see what I mean. This is gonna rank very high at the end of my year list. I can feel it. If you give it a shot, if it sounds intriguing to you at all in the slightest, I think you're gonna love them the way that I have. Next up, we have Morast with Fentanyl. And this is another German band swinging their way onto this list, but this goes into a very dark, depressing vein. The third album from this band is a depressing look at the very few highs and so many lows of drug use, and the music more than captures the hell that comes with that use and addiction. This is one of the most unpleasant albums that I've heard all year, but that's exactly why I love it. It is a sheer terrifying soundtrack that crushes everything in its path. It never gets too fast or too slow, or even just right. It feels uneasy the whole time, and it will mess with your sensibilities. But I expected no less here, and that's exactly what it's like to have a drug addiction. It's a brutal album in all of the right ways, and if you check it out, I think you might agree. Now we have Operatus with Golden State, and it's another debut album, this time coming from Czechia, and this is tailor-made for those who miss the dark sense of symphonic metal. This is a dark album that still feels grand and awe-inspiring. There is just enough genre bending that happens as well that will come as a great surprise, very welcomed, but it's all done with some of the finest musicianship that I've heard in the genre in a long time. It's hard to get all of these vocals and instrumentation done right in production, but they found a way to make the production, the mixing, the mastering, all filled out so everything is done the way that it needs to, and everyone shines. This is a stunning display of what can be done with the genre in 2025, and if you miss those glory days of the gothic, symphonic, and epic metal that sounds like this, and when it was at the top of the world, you need to give this album your full attention. Next, we have Second Day with Flamboyance. This is a sophomore album from this French outfit, and it's a brand new foray for me, but I am loving what I'm hearing. It's this atmospheric sound filled through death metal, just the right amount of melodic moments. It feels like alternative melodeath, if even such a thing can exist. It's like other bands that I've heard in similar genres, and it truly stands out for what they're trying to achieve. The production is raw, and yet exactly what it needs to be. The genre bending is on point, and it delivers. And it's the perfect kind of album that if you want some true innovation, this might be something to check out. I love what I'm hearing, and I'm so curious to see where the band could possibly go from here, but I'm excited to find out. Check this out and see if it's for you. Up now we have Soltor with Ride as One. When you think of Viking metal and folk metal done together, you might think of a band like Airbolter. You know, something that feels like it was created in the Scandinavian mountains. The music feels like the Vikings are about to unleash a brand new attack on their enemies. But what if I told you that this particular outfit is from Kentucky, of all places? You'd have to pick your jaw up off the floor. Yes, this is made in America, yet it feels like some of the most authentic Scandinavian metal that you've ever heard. This is an atmospheric vibe in the production that just makes everything raw enough, but it is bolstered by the songwriting and the musicianship that just punches through and slays everything in its path. Also, knowing this is all done by one man known as Brian Judd just blows my mind away, considering the sophistication that's actually done throughout the album. This feels like a band who's been trying to perfect their sound for well over a decade, and they're just putting out like their 5th or 6th album, not a one-man project putting out their debut. Seriously, if you want like some of the best American-made Viking metal, check out Soltor. Coming up next is a band and album name that I deeply apologize for getting wrong, but I am gonna try. It is Tarfod with Lidante. This is a project that put out 3 albums last year, including their debut album, and I can only assume that there is more coming in 2025, but this is the first album of 2025 from this project, and I just love what I'm hearing here. It is just such a fiery and engaging start. It's dark, it's haunting, it's such a great display of progressive post-black with the right kind of orchestration, piano, atmosphere, everything that can bring you to your knees if you let it. This is how I want my post-black done. It has power, it's evolving, and pure motion behind it all. This one hits my soul in a way that I didn't know that I could, and I want more. Thankfully, there is more, since I have 3 albums I haven't checked out yet, and I can only imagine that there's more coming in 2025. But this is a spectacular album from someone I think it's only going to get better as time goes onward. This is how you keep post-black engaging. And finally today, we end things with Void of Hope with Proof of Existence. Is life a gift or a curse? Well, the debut album from this Finnish black metal band answers that pretty bluntly. It's a curse. This is a slow, daunting tearjerker of a black metal album that looks at the sad realities of life, death, everything in between. They more than live up to the name of the band. This album fills you with such a void that feels like nothing can ever fill it. The vocals give this kind of life lover feel to it, and it feels quite sinister, so it's not going to be for everybody. Some people are going to love it, some are going to kind of laugh at the absurdity when you hear the occasional shriek, but hey, go into it with an open mind. And the production feels just right with everything else. This gets dangerously close to like that Black and Doom territory, while still being very much a black metal album. It also feels like the last sounds that you hear before you die in the worst possible way, so it's kind of perfect for 2025, isn't it? If you want to hear your black metal as dark and as bleak as it gets, look no further than Void of Hope. And there you go, folks, 30 brand new albums, 7 that are out today, and the rest that I've missed along the way. So what do you think? Did I get some good albums here? Did I get some bad albums? Any new discoveries? Anything that you're gonna steer clear of? Please let me know in the comments down below. And of course, like, comment, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. The channel's really been picking up momentum since I've been able to get back to doing this, and I'm so grateful for it. Thank you so much for tuning in week after week and checking out these album reviews. I hope to get everything else rolling with every Debriefings going on in the near future. And if I sound tired and out of it during all of this, it is because I am completely tired and completely out of it right now. I feel miserable. I'm going to be going back to bed, but I'm so glad that I was able to cover this, and now 110 albums in 3 weeks, so I think I've earned the right to lie down. And until next week when we cover Out Today and What I Missed for February 21st, 2025, this is Josh Runquist for the Heavy Debriefings YouTube channel saying, embrace the skullet.